Blessed be, Namaste. Welcome back to Nine Wands. I'm Akasha, the Violet Ray, and I wanted to share a little bit about what's been happening on my journey. I haven't been here making videos since I think very beginning of September. Just because, as I said in the past, I really want what I share to be authentic and authentically capture what's happening in my life, in my spirituality as things shift and change for me. And I wait for inspiration so that I can be a channel. So forgive the sporadicness of videos, but I am trying to, as much as possible, share as there is something on my heart to share. So I actually tried to make this video a couple of weeks ago and I wasn't able to post it just because I like to think that my guides weren't having it. They just thought, you're not ready to talk about this yet because there's a little bit more to experience. So the fall, autumn was a tough one for me. Yes, I'm having a little bit of champagne. It's almost 5 o'clock here in California, so I'm having a little champagne. And this wine glass is really cute. Actually, my husband gave it to me. It says, "Which way to the wine?" We got some like really cute Samhain stuff back at Halloween time, and this was one of the things. That's nice. So today we are talking about surviving the dark night of the soul. What is the dark night of the soul? Before I get into that, actually I want to share, because I'm wearing something that I think is actually a part of surviving difficult challenges and changes that we're going through, both in our world, in our personal lives. So I am wearing, this is just a little jewel basket that you can get whenever you have crystals that you want to wear. So it's just a little tiny basket with a hook that you put your own little cord through. So this is opalite. It's kind of iridescent. Opalite is great for transformation, for connecting to the higher energies, for ascension purposes. So deepening your awakening experience by being available to receive those messages. And in the middle I'm wearing some hematite, and hematite is great for grounding, specifically grounding into the earth forces. I'm an air sign. I tend to be super like going with the wind, and so having a crystal that helps to ground me into the earth is actually really helpful. And sometimes it feels almost too heavy, but that's when I know that I need that rooting in. And then at the bottom I'm just wearing a little tiny moonstone, which I love to wear moonstone on the new moon. As I've said before, I'm a part of a solitary coven. We all have our individual paths, and we work with moonstone as our primary stone. So our coven is called moonstone. So I like to wear my moonstone on the new moon, and moonstone is for connecting with intuition, higher mind, higher self, and specifically tapping into the psychic realm. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about surviving the dark night of the soul, and this is something that's so close to my heart because it is something that I have been experiencing since the fall. I'm so sorry if you can hear that whining. My kittens are not happy that they are not free right now. They're in their little room because they want to be out here because they hear me, but they will be very distracting, although they're very cute. So I was listening to Super Soul Sundays, which is Oprah's podcast that she does, and she had Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, who is, I'm just going to shut the door because they're going to keep whining. Let me out. Sorry about that. Yeah, because they're just going to keep on whining. Yes, so Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith was on, he is the founder of Agape Church, which is a beautiful spiritual movement in Southern California. And he was on Oprah's Super Soul Sundays. And I really loved his definition because it's something I've been experiencing, that I've experienced in the past and kind of moved through. And then it kind of like went through a reverb and I didn't know how to name what I was feeling. And he defined it as, to paraphrase, when you lose identification with who you used to be, but you're not quite sure yet who you are becoming. It's kind of when you're in between both worlds. I like to say, like, when I've got one foot in my old world and then one foot in the world where I feel myself moving towards. So you can experience fear. There's a lot of, like, I went through a lot of panic emotions, and a disconnection from life, where you just kind of feel like, what's the point of any of this? And I'll delve a little bit deeper into what I was experiencing. So back in, I'll talk about the old and the new. Back in 2004, when I went through my Kundalini awakening experience, you have this experience that's so high and takes over your entire being, and you walk around in the world and it's like, you know, I was seeing vibratory patterns on people, colors, like their aura was just jumping off of their bodies. And I had an experience, I think I've mentioned this before, when I was at a meditation retreat and I was doing a silent one-on-one shared experience with another meditation participant, and we were supposed to be reflecting on our journey there and what we were there to learn or release. This is at the very end of the retreat, and so we were just holding silent space for each other and just holding eye contact and not actually speaking and letting the other person just be seen and express, because it was a silent meditation retreat. And at one point, I locked onto this feeling of sorrow in the person who I was sharing this experience with. And right over on the left side of her, like right by her neck, her back area, I saw the form of a baby just kind of rise up off of her body and dissipate. And I knew instinctively that she had had a miscarriage. And I could feel that it was a late, like a midterm, like all of that just kind of came to me like boom, 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 boom. And it was overwhelming. And then later, when we were allowed to talk, she talked about that experience and shared that was true and that's what had happened for her. And so I was walking around the world and I was having these really high psychic experiences. I was interpreting all of this spiritual phenomena, but no one else is having this experience but you. No one can see what you're seeing. You can say, hey, do you see this person who's got this really bright, like, fuchsia aura going on around her head? Like, I think that person's pregnant. And they're like, okay, all right. Or, like, having information just be downloaded from other people's guides and feeling like I think I'm supposed to share that. I had visitations from folks who had passed on or transitioned into another body, and it was really discombobulating, to be honest. I can't say that, like, you know, Kundalini awakening or like opening your third eye in a like very instant way is some magically high experience that everyone should go and do. I think, yes, it's a product of spiritual awakening, but if that's your sole aim, don't do it, because it can be really discombobulating to see all of this phenomena around you, and then nobody can see it but you. It's like, how are we all just like, I kind of overreacted to being in the grocery store because it was like I just wanted some jelly to go with my peanut butter, and there were so many different varieties of jam, and I just became so sensory overloaded that we as human beings need to have so many choices, and I just wanted something to be easy and clear. And it was the realization that this awakening had really taken me into such a place where I was struggling to fit into normal everyday waking consciousness. How do you go to a job and sit at a desk and make phone calls and type things when you know that, like, you know, there's an extraterrestrial hanging out in a corner just kind of like waiting to share information with you about the next the next plane, and it's like one thing feels really important and the other doesn't. But I also need to make money and pay my bills, which feels like, why should I be bothering to do that if I know there's this other world where I could just think about transportation and teleport somewhere, or think about food. And that's what happens, right? Some people really do go that whole trip, and you know, it's a form of psychosis where you actually lose the ability to be productive in the world because you're having this experience that's so outside of, you know, the average human consciousness, and you can't make it make sense to other people, and you hear voices or you see things that no one else sees, and people think you're crazy. And I did start to have that fear of, like, what if I'm actually just cracking up? And so that's where the dark night of the soul came from for me, and I experienced a bit of it. I'm still kind of moving out of that, but I experienced it again after taking a long break from really intense spiritual work. And I went back into the shadow work, and it came up again where, like, you know, as I was having these communication experiences with other realm beings, that it became really difficult to, you know, fight with my boss over something very silly. Like, I don't care. The fact that I have to be here is stressful. I don't want to be here. I want to be, like, out being of service, because it feels like, I always say, like, when you know better, you do better. If you've had a Gnostic experience, it's your responsibility to then share that experience in a way that other people can then have their own Gnostic experiences. And Gnosis is simply just knowing through personal experience. And so I'm kind of moving out of it now, but like this feeling of, why am I here? What is the point? Why am I bothering? And I know that was a big, if you ever watched The Matrix, go back to the very first time you watched The Matrix, or maybe watch it again if it's been many years. And you can see now how many of the things that there's such a deep, there's layers and layers and layers and layers, right, of spiritual phenomena and factoids happening in that film. And when you really start to look at the world around us, and we can see very much how we're functioning inside this, like, false reality, but we're so rooted to it, we're so aligned to it, that we can't get out of it. We can't just decide to go off the grid. Excuse me. I mean, you can go grow your own potatoes, but at some point you have to turn on the lights. And how do you do that except for you pay the company? And even if you get a generator, you still have to pay for that, right? So there's only so far off the grid we can go. And when you watch that film, or other films like it, and you start to see how we have become so trapped by the world that has been built around us, that we are in a type of enslavement. And it's painful and it's scary. And I just kind of started to go, why am I doing this to myself? What am I doing here? How am I supposed to be of service? Why should I be going out to a job every day that has no, like, real field of application for who I know I truly am and what I know I'm here to give? And it's a form of depression. It becomes a form of depression where you just kind of want to hide, and you want to not participate in any of that stuff, and you want to, like, just stay away from all of it. So, getting back to my trusty notes, which you can't see, but I thought I'm going to try to not make a 25-minute video. So as I said, some of the catalysts for this kind of experience can be a spiritual awakening that's very instantaneous, like that, you know, you're doing yoga and all of a sudden your third eye opens and you can see certain things, or you watch something like The Matrix or Disclosure with, you know, Corey Goode, or something like that, where you start to realize that there's something else going on here. And it doesn't just have to be about spirituality. It can also just be about life changes. I've heard that, you know, mothers can experience this, where you've been pregnant, so then you're very aware at that point that your role is to gestate a new human. And then once that human is out in the world, then it's like you're not quite sure yet who you are. You know you're a mom, but like what really is that for you? And so there can be a little bit of identity shift there, where you have to recapitulate who you are in light of now this person is no longer feeding off of you, but you have to take care of it. And am I still that person that goes to the club and drops it like his hat? Am I still that person that's like at my altar doing like, you know, work? Or, you know, who is sitting in my office and typing up stuff, right? So life shifts like parenthood or religious changes, like when you change religious paths. All those things can be catalysts for shifting you into the dark night of the soul. And there's phases of it, right? So like I said, I call that woke, now what? You know, now I'm awake. What am I supposed to do with myself now? And then when you have to go back into the world, when you have to start doing all the things that you were doing before, but now you have this other knowledge that came from personal experience and spiritual awakening or what have you. There's a Buddhist philosophy called before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And that's what going into the world means, that once you wake up and you have this really high experience, you then still have to continue to do the things that you were doing before as a member of the human society. And how do you do that with mindfulness and not the depression of like, oh, now I have to keep doing these things even though I know that there's not really some point to it. And integration of new thought or a new part of your life into your self-identity. So then when you're actually starting to figure out, okay, this is who I am now. This is what I'm going to be doing with myself as a result of what I know or what I have expressed. Sometimes that's changing career paths. A lot of people become yoga teachers or meditation teachers, or join various organizations where they can then be of service, or they figure out that their passion in life is teaching and working with young people. So a couple of tips to surviving this. And these are tips that actually are things that I do and am still currently doing. So Michael Bernard Beckwith said, Dr. Michael, if this experience was going to last forever, what quality would you need to feel in order to be peaceful? What quality would you have to possess in order to feel at peace while this experience is happening? Once you figure out what that quality is, like it might be strength, it might be will, it might be community. Once you figure out what that thing is for you, for me it was inspiration. I needed to feel continually inspired in order to move through however long this phase of what am I supposed to do with myself. Once you figure out what that quality is, you start to focus on developing that quality and shifting your focus from the world feels so heavy and scary to I am going to look for inspiration every day in every way. That takes your mind off of how scary or depressing or dark it feels, and you can move through the dark night of the soul much more gracefully. And also remembering that the dark is where things grow. The dark is where things become, right? The womb is dark. When the moon is dark, we're finding out stuff about ourselves, right? So the darkness doesn't have to be a scary place. We sleep in the dark. We rest at night. So just recognizing that you are going to come out on the other side of this, and there's a purpose to the dark. Setting up a soul moment. So a soul moment I like to call, I like to use that word, meaning anything that you do that's simply about you taking time for yourself. If that's 5 minutes of meditation, if that's a sip of wine at the end of your day, if that's going for a walk or listening to something on YouTube that's inspiring, lighting a candle and just taking 5 deep breaths. Whatever you do to come back to a sense of centeredness That's what a soul moment is going back to the heart. That's the direction of the center, of the sun. So coming back to a soul moment where you or using a soul moment or choosing a soul moment that plugs you back into your heart, back into your center, and not letting anybody mess with that. So turn off your phone or put it on airplane, shut the doors, quiet the kittens, whatever that is for you. Don't let anybody mess with that moment, because that is what's going to help you continue to develop that quality that you determined that you needed in order to move through the dark night of the soul gracefully. And the last tip would be to seek out like-minded community. Whenever you feel alone is when everything just feels so much darker and so much heavier, and it's going to last forever. So if that's online community, if that's coming here or to other YouTube channels where people are walking through their journey and sharing that with each other so that we can continue to grow and connect and move through our own dark nights together. If you know other magical persons, if you have a guide that's particularly chatty and able to sit with you, if it's working with your ancestors, developing some sort of community around propping yourself up, staying centered. That is what's going to also help you to move through the dark night. Limit the news. Limit how long you spend. I let CNN pop up on my phone, and I'm telling you, it has become such a spiritual drain to every 5 minutes get a notification of which mogul is now has come out is raping women or attacking women or being sexually assaulting towards other people or children, or fuck, you know, to get that all day long, those alerts. I'm turning that shit off. It's good to know what's happening, but to get the news all day, every day, it becomes an emotional drain. So limit that. Keep the good stuff coming in. Keep the iffy stuff to like as needed basis, and the negative stuff completely out. Wear jewelry that's grounding, crystals that help you to plug into the earth, and remember that you are never alone. We are never alone. Whenever one of us is going through darkness, there's shared collective experience. So somebody else is feeling exactly what you're feeling, maybe for different reasons. But there is shared collective experience on this plane. So with that, I am going to say Namaste, Hotep, which is peace in Kemeticism, and I look forward to hearing your stories of how you survived the dark night of the soul. And thank you to everyone who has been subscribing. I really do feel like this is community for me, and appreciate every person who's commented or said anything kind. It has honestly propped up my heart and made me want to come back to this space and share some more of my journey with you. So thank you for sharing this space with me, and I wish you all a beautiful start to your week, or whatever day this is for you. Happy new moon, and may the light fill your heart and the darkness be far from you. Blessed be.